For me in math, it is so important to give students immediate feedback. So if you give a student a 20-question worksheet and they do the entire worksheet using an incorrect strategy, they're not going to want to go back and do all 20 questions again. And so for me, it's really important that they get the feedback as soon as I see that they have an incorrect strategy. But if I have a class of 12 kids, I can't check everyone's question one as soon as they finish.
Welcome to the Modern Classrooms Project podcast. Each week, we bring you discussions with educators on how they use blended, self-paced, and mastery-based learning to better serve their students. We believe teachers learn best from each other, so this is our way of lifting up the voices of leaders and innovators in our community. This is the Modern Classrooms Project podcast.
Hey y'all, it's Tony Rose Deanna, they, them pronouns, a designated hype person here at MCP, and I am joined by a high school geometry teacher at an alternative school setting in Metro Atlanta, and I've actually had the pleasure of being in the classroom as well, so I was able to see all the things that they had put together, but welcome Rebecca Johnson. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time and energy.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying yes to the podcast. I know that my colleague Michael and I walked into your classroom at 7 a.m. And so super early, you're with high school students doing math with them. And I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And I know that as soon as I'd walked in, I'm very much a high energy person. But when I walked into your classroom, it was just very, very chill vibe. Like, hey, it's very soothing here. This is a space where we can make mistakes. This is a space where you can ask questions. This is also a space where there's no sense of urgency, but also the right amount of like high expectations that students know that they can't not do the work. And so I just really appreciated that was something that Michael and I were both like, oh, this is so cool. Like I would also love to be in this class just so that I know, okay, this is a place to like be chill, to like really get our guards down and to work on math skills, right? And so before we get started, what is bringing you joy currently?
I am just coming back from spring break. And so I think anytime I have a fully charged battery, that is joy right there. So just being well rested and yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you were able to rest because I know sometimes people would do spring break and it's like a vacation and then they need a vacation from their vacation. So I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing. So Rebecca, tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you started your MCP/education journey.
So I don't think I ever meant to get into teaching, but I started as a paraprofessional in Gwinnett County. And then the next year I was offered a teaching position. And so I started teaching. So I've been there for 9 years, teaching for 8. And I've always been drawn to academics, to especially working with people that don't feel great about their academic skills. And so I've always done like tutoring in high school, tutoring in college, and teaching was the next natural part in that sequence.
How was it for you when you went from being a parapro to then a full-time teacher? And then was math chosen for you or did you choose math?
I have actually a background in environmental chemistry. And so math is there. But math was chosen for me. That was the thing that was available. So I love science in the way that it connects people to the world. And then math, I think, was a very different mindset where it is, here's this problem that we are going to solve. But in teaching math, I saw we are still connecting these problems, these people to the world. So there's still that connection to real life, which I really appreciate. So understanding a problem and listing the steps to figure it out. So it was chosen for me, but I think it really is a great fit.
Yeah. And another thing too, just in case our listeners are wondering, like, what does it mean to be in an alternative school setting? Can you give us a little bit more about how what your school is about?
Yes. So I work at an alternative school in Gwinnett County, and it is when a student faces a disciplinary action at their school where they have a separation from what we call their home school. They end up at my school for a certain amount of time. So they go to we call it a tribunal hearing. And from that hearing, it is decided that they're going to be in an alternative setting for a certain amount of time. Usually it's a semester. Sometimes it's a little more, a little less. And so it is a disciplinary action to be at my school. But I think being at the school, you see it as not a discipline. It's not, the school is not a punishment. So there is a separation from the school so the kids can get the support they need. But I think that the environment of the school is to give the kids the support that they need. The kids come for a variety of reasons, but I think the goal from all of the staff there is to support the kids to make sure that they are ready to go back to their home school.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the setting as well that was created for the students. It's small group settings, so you have maybe 9, 10 students, maybe less than that, because I know that I'd visited other classrooms as well, and they had 4 or 5 students. And I know one of the things that really stood out to me also is, like you said, the students don't stay there all year. You get them however long it was given for them, and that's how you can have that impact of this is a disciplinary, not a punishment, right? But this is something that resulted into something that happened at your other school. This doesn't mean that learning is going to stop. If anything, we're going to even elevate and enhance that learning journey for you because now you have all of the supports. And so as a teacher, and you've been with them for 8 years now, 9 with as a parapro, I'm so curious too how you navigate having students part of the school year and not the full school year, right? Because I know a lot of our teachers also struggle with absenteeism. And so they're like, I don't know how to catch students up. How do you do that when a kid comes in February or March?
Yeah, so you are right. We have very fluid classrooms. So my class at the start of the week is not always the same as my class at the end of the week. So I have new students coming in, I have students leaving. And so it really is meeting students where they're at. So figuring out, for me, I personally approach mastery. How can I get you to show mastery of these standards, of these concepts? And I think a mastery-based approach is the best way to do it. So it's not, did you complete these 5,000 worksheets? And so really just looking for ways for students to catch up. And I think that's where self-paced instruction really does come into play. We have kids that are going to be in 1,000 different places for 1,000 different reasons and have different energy levels on a Monday than they do on a Wednesday. And so in an alternative setting, everything is just a lot more fluid. So attendance rate, people in the classroom, people leaving the classroom, their energy levels being pulled out for supports that they're receiving through a program at the school. Everything changes. And so just figuring out something that is flexible for the students is always my goal in teaching.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said too, flexible for teachers too, right? Like you said, because I know for me, I would be like, oh my gosh, this is so much to keep up. And so you really have to create a system that works for your brain as well so that you don't become overwhelmed when you have multiple students coming in at multiple times of the year and then leaving as well. And so Rebecca, one of the things that I really, really loved about your classroom, and this is something that I stayed and had a long conversation with you, is about Desmos, right? And how you use Desmos in the classroom. You went through our VMP course, our virtual mentorship program, and I saw a lot of the pieces in within your the resources that you use. So let's talk more about this, because as someone who is not really knowledgeable about the math world, right? And someone who's learning. And I know that there's a lot of teachers who use Desmos. How did you align it with self-pacing, mastery-based learning, and blended learning as well? And then also you shared a resource with us that takes us to the Amplify class. Tell us a little bit more about that too.
Yes. So Desmos, I think most people are familiar with it as the online calculator that you're now seeing integrated into the ACTs, the SATs, AP exam. So it's an online calculator in its beginning, but it has transformed into an activity builder space. So teachers, and what I love about it is it's open source. So everything in its creation was free. So we had this open source platform for teachers to build activities from scratch. And it takes a little bit of coding knowledge, but even without coding knowledge, you can make a very simple online activity for students. I started using it when we had hybrid learning. So I had kids learning digitally and I had kids in the classroom, and I had the need to make sure kids can access their work anywhere. So whether they were homesick for 2 weeks or they were going to be at home working online for the entire semester and I was teaching them on Zoom. So I created these digital lessons as a way for students to be able to access work anywhere. And I think anyone using Desmos knows that there's a learning curve. So when I first started out, it was the very basic. So it looked like basically an online worksheet. So students didn't get much feedback about it. And then the next year I was like, okay, my students have different needs. How can I learn how to provide those needs using Desmos? So Desmos it really is just an amazing platform for educators to get to create exactly what they're looking for. So it's, a place for teachers to, I think, develop whatever they see as their students' needs. So for my class, I see that I think people think about math as only having one correct answer. But in math, there is so many different ways to tell me that the answer is 2 pi. So you can write 2 pi, you can write 4 pi divided by 2, you can write 6.28. Like there's so many different ways to provide an answer that's correct. And all of that can be done in this online platform. And then it's nice because students get the immediate feedback of, I didn't do this right before I moved to question number 2. I need to figure out how I can adjust my strategy and get the answer correct. And then I can move on to answer 2 with that new strategy that I just suggested. So there's just so many elements about it that work well for the students and then also for educators as well. So every feedback that the student is getting, I also get it in a nice, neat little package so I can assess students' learning as well.
Yeah, and it was really great to see too that in each problem that you had a link to the video that you created, which then takes the students to a YouTube video of yourself. And your videos were like 3 minutes or like really, really short. And when I was looking at the Desmos problems, right? Like when I was looking at the platform itself and what the students are seeing, literally all the aspects of like what we look for in a modern classroom is there, right? Like you have your video, you have your task, you have the explanation piece of it. And then you also implemented again, like the mastery checks of like how many times can they try it so that they can get the feedback, implement that feedback and try again. I'm curious about your thought process with the videos because again, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is true scaffolding, right? It's not like 10, 15, 20 minutes long. You are covering so many skills in one lesson, but then you just like created 2-3 minute videos. How long did it take for you to do these videos? How comfortable were you? If you have any advice for people who are just like starting out, what would you say?
So my videos are short because I know that we are competing with social media where kids are watching 60-second videos for entertainment. And so I think it's impossible to expect them to learn from a long 20-minute lesson video that is not entertaining. Like math is great, but there's no way to make math as entertaining as like a 30-second TikTok. And so it's really, how do we make this short and accessible and concise? And the nice thing about Desmos is you can embed videos into the platform. So I choose not to just because I like it to be linked to YouTube so I can collect data about like, okay, this many students watch this video and for how long. There's just a lot more information when I have the link to YouTube. It's just, I'm a very data-driven person. And so, yes, it would be easier for me and for students to just put the video there, but I think it's a very fair compromise to have it to YouTube so I can see how many students are actually viewing these videos and are they viewing the entire thing. But the videos, I feel like it is very low risk to create a 90-second video. So I aim to do videos that are anywhere between 60 seconds. And I think the longest video I will ever make is a 3-minute video. And yeah, so anywhere from 60 seconds to 3 minutes. And I think if you mess up and you're not comfortable with the mistake you make in the video, you can start over. And so that's 3 minutes of time that you would do again. And then you'll be better in the next video. I think it's very low risk to do these short, concise videos. And then you move on to the next video that you need to do. And again, it's 90 seconds. If you mess up, you can start again. Or the kids do not mind when you say, oops, I didn't mean to say 3, I meant 2. yeah, there's lots of room for mistake in these videos. And I think the kids appreciate, like I have so much feedback from the kids about not video things like, Miss, I can hear your dog, or like, Miss, you're typing so loud. I think they like the like homemade aspect of the videos. And so, yeah, I would say definitely try the videos. The benefit of having your own videos, it's you're going to have those things that if you were teaching in person that you want to drive into the kid's head. Like, you know, that like if you have a special joke when you're teaching volume formulas, like you get to say that joke in the video where the kids are going to remember it when they move throughout the lesson. And so it's definitely worth it to make your own videos. And you already know the content because you would have said the content in class. And so record that 90-second video of the joke you would have made that kids are going to remember as they move forward.
Yeah. And another thing too that I would add on if you do want to make like a 5-10 minute video, take it and then chunk it, right? Like only give the first 2 minutes, then the next 2 minutes, as opposed to giving them the whole thing. And I want to circle back to Rebecca on what you said about the simple coding where then students receive feedback right away. Because I know that you were showing that to me and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much intentionality and planning here. And you really had to think about the misconceptions that your students could potentially have so that feedback is personalized in a way that you're not doing it one by one. You actually just coded it so that that feedback is given automatically.
Yeah, it's for me in math, it is so important to give students immediate feedback. So if you give a student a 20-question worksheet and they do the entire worksheet using an incorrect strategy, they're not going to want to go back and do all 20 questions again. And so for me, it's really important that they get the feedback as soon as I see that they have an incorrect strategy. But if I have a class of 12 kids, I can't check everyone's question 1 as soon as they finish. And so having this online tool, it's like having 1,000 me's in the classroom where whenever a student needs help, I have coded it in a way where you can give as much or as little feedback as you want. You can give feedback if a student is off with rounding or decimal, or you can be really generous in rounding if you aren't focused on the skill of rounding. You want a general answer. There's just so much that you can do, but the student has all of the support that you would have given instead of walking around to every single desk and checking every single question as soon as they finished. You have a little companion that does it for you, which is nice. So there's a little bit of work on the front end, but then this is something that you're going to be able to use moving forward, that you're going to get better at using moving forward. And so it's definitely worth it for me.
Yeah, and it also reminds you as a teacher to do the work first so then you can see what kind of misconceptions students could have, right? So I'm always telling our teachers to do that piece as well of like, hey, make sure you do the thing that you want students to do so you can see, right, or try to like figure out or predict what could be the barriers when doing that problem or that task.
Hey there, listeners. This is Zach. I've got some announcements for you this week. You can join the Modern Classrooms Project on June 23rd for the Leadership Collaborative Summit 2026. It's a free virtual event for K-12 school and district leaders. This year's theme is personalized by design, and it's built around a core belief. Every student learns differently, and the best learning communities are built to act on that. You'll hear from principals, district leaders, and coaches from across the country who are making instruction more human through mastery-based, student-centered approaches and getting real results. Every session is led by practitioners and designed to give you strategies you can act on this fall. Help us spread the Modern Classrooms model. You can refer a friend and earn swag. Know a colleague or school leader who would love our summer learning opportunities? Fill out the form linked in the show notes, and MCP will take it from there. They'll reach out to them with information on the model and their exclusive discount code. Again, links for both are in the show notes, but for now, let's get back into it with Rebecca and TR.
You know, another thing that I learned from you about Desmos is that there's also kind of like a progress tracker. And because you had it up and I was like, wait, what is this? Tell me more about this. I didn't even know that this could be a thing. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
That is called the dashboard. So Desmos has like very Desmos specific language. They call that the teacher dashboard. And so you have a student facing screen where you see exactly what the students see. I'm going to call them the wrong names. I'm not even going to call them names. You have a screen where you can see what students would see before they answered the question. And you have a screen where you can click and see, this is what Tony Rose answered on her question. So you can see a student specific screen, and then you can see a dashboard, and that's what you're referring to as the progress tracker. And it has so much information for teachers. And so some teachers choose to display that information with students. I occasionally do as a motivating factor, like, wow, look how fast you guys are moving, or, oh, you're so close to being done with this. Let's push forward a little bit. But it's basically a spreadsheet that has checks and X's and blanks to show you which students have answered which, they call them slides instead of questions, which students have answered which slides in Desmos. So it's just a snapshot of data for that activity or that lesson that you've created. So it's just, Desmos is, because it was created for math, there's just so much data that goes into it, where I don't think teachers always realize it's so helpful to have all of this data, but there's so much that you can learn from looking at this screen. So you can see that Jeffrin is on slide 2 and Casey is on slide 18. So you can see exactly where students are working by the checks that they have or the blue dots. And there's just lots of information for teachers. You can choose to share it with students. You can choose to keep it to yourself and communicate that with students in another way. There's just lots of possibilities through Desmos.
Yeah, it's such a great visual cue for as a teacher too, right? For a teacher, just being like, okay, I need to pull these students in a small group or one-on-one because they're getting way behind. So I really love that it was really quick for me to be like, oh yeah, let's work with these students now, so that they don't feel overwhelmed with all of the things. And another thing that you had shared with me about this this dashboard tracker piece is you also said that you can share it with other teachers so that they are able to see the progress. And I love that because, I mean, again, that's that transparency piece of like, if you do have a co-teacher, then you know where all the students are. So there's not like a question of like, what is student A and student B doing? It's just something that's easily accessible for other adults as well. So I really love that. Okay, so Rebecca, let's talk about the sheet that you provided, that you created for students with their grades. That, you know, it's like an updated grade book for each student, which I was like, wait a minute, that's so cool. And also listeners, like Rebecca shared this sheet as well, so you can see what it looks like. And I'm assuming that this is a sheet that people can make a copy, right, and like use on their own if they wanted.
It would take a little bit of it will take a lot of tweaking to use it on your own, but it's something that is possible. And I don't mind eventually having a sheet where this is how you do exactly what I'm doing on this sheet. But so since I've started teaching, I have always had a spreadsheet that has every single student listed, and so all of the students are listed in rows and all of the assignments are listed in columns. And I update that sheet at the end of every single day. And it takes me about 10 minutes. So I think it's a very good visual for me to see what exactly students have done. So I've always had this sheet, and I've always had different versions of sharing this with students. And for me, because I love data, I love spreadsheets, it's a thing that worked in my head. This spreadsheet in the format that I use it works for me. But then sharing it with students are like, Miss, what are we looking at? There's so much information here. I don't know what you're trying to tell me. And so over the years, I have developed different types of spreadsheets that are a lot more student facing. And so the latest version that I have is a spreadsheet that pulls from the way that I like to collect data about my students and makes it very student friendly. So they can see the assignment that they have for the entire semester. So they see the entire semester and the assignment names and how I'm averaging them when they go in the grade book. And it updates automatically. So it takes zero, besides setting it up, I think it took me maybe 30 minutes to create. I never have to look at it again. But as I fill out this sheet that I fill out for myself anyway, the students also see exactly what they made. I number my assignments, but they see what they made on assignment 4.1 and 4.2 and 4.3. So they see their grade and they get to make the choice. Hey, I was absent on 7.2. I should probably go do that assignment if I would like my grade to be higher. So it's just, I think I finally have a format that is student facing enough that they can start to make those decisions on what they should do to remediate their grade. And so I think just finding a way to communicate whatever is in your head. And I think that's where all educators are. How do we get what's in our head to a format that makes it meaningful to the students?
And it seems like you've had a good amount of iterations, right, of how this could look for you and for your students as well. And so I really love seeing this because, again, it provides that transparency piece so that students know exactly where they are. And then also that accountability piece as well, right? Like, hey, because you know where you are, now you get to choose and prioritize what you need to get to so that you can continue mastering the skills and the concepts while you are here. And another thing that I really appreciate about your whole classroom setup too, Rebecca, is that your system is it's just seamless, right? Like you just had a good system that works for you, for your brain, for students and their brains as well. And like you said, it's just a lot of iterations like, oh, this didn't work. So let me like revamp this or like, let me redo this so that it does work a little bit better for all parties involved. And I know that I'd asked you too, I was looking at the sheet and I was like, whoa, that's a lot of grades. How do you keep up with it? And you said, oh, it takes me like 10 minutes to do it because a lot of the times it's automated already. And I can just quickly check to make sure that it, ties back to what the students were doing. And so I was like, oh man, that's amazing. I love that because I know that you look at like, if not all of the things that they're doing, you look at majority of that and provide that feedback right away.
Yeah, I think that is important. So I think as a teacher, I don't want to keep any of the information about what is going on to myself. So if you made a 70 on this assignment, I want you to know why you made a 70, which questions you got right, which questions you got wrong, how many points this question is worth. So just communicating all of that information to the student. And because I communicated it to you, and everything is automatically graded. I have not graded anything by hand in years. Everything is automatically graded because I put work on the front end to create these assignments that are giving you feedback. And now because I'm giving you feedback, which is the thing you need, I don't have to grade, which is the thing that I need. So I'm just copying the grades from these assignments that I created. So it really is a quick process and everyone's needs are being met.
Yeah. And that's kind of where like the mastery-based learning is coming too of like students, how many chances do they have to make up to reach the mastery? Because I know there are some that like it's multiple, but do you have a limit?
And this is just a personal preference. So all of my assignments there's sections for each assignment. So I have an activating strategy, which is just for us to either practice old skills or to practice a skill that we're going to be using in this lesson. Or sometimes it's just a check in like, hey, how are you doing today? And that part of the assignment is not graded. And then I have the mini lesson where I have these videos and it is us learning how to do the skill. And it's very scaffolded. It asks lots of questions that they're getting immediate feedback on. And that's worth a certain amount of points. And then there's the independent practice, which is the bulk of the lesson. And again, you can practice as many times as you need to. And so that's a bulk of the points. And then I have two other sections. There's lots of sections in my stuff, but formative assessment is where it's okay, you've had a lot of time to practice. I want to see how you can do this without some of that support. So I'll take away some of the scaffolding. And then I also, for anything in the formative assessment questions, if it takes you multiple attempts, so more than one time to answer a question, you get half credit. So you can still feel free to try. You still get points for trying, but I want to see accuracy. So can you answer volume? Yes. Can you answer volume correct on your first time, which is what you're going to have to do on a test? That is what I'm looking for in the formative assessment session. And so all of the work I do is mostly open response, maybe with a couple of scaffolding multiple choice questions. But then because I know we do live in a school system where we are tested in multiple choice format, my summary activities, so the last part of the lesson is always multiple choice questions. So yes, we practice in this open response format. Let's bring it back to how it's going to look on a test. And so it's set up as a test. You get one chance to answer this question. If not, move on to the next one. So I always my kids are very used to the structure of my lessons, but there's 3 multiple choice questions at the end that are what we practiced in the lesson, but now it's in the testing format that you would see. And so I think the structure every day, we're doing activating strategy, mini lesson, independent practice, formative assessment, and summary. And so the kids are used to it. And I think it does a gradual release model that I really like. So it's practice as much as you need. All right, now we're going to see how you can do it in one attempt, how you can do it in terms of accuracy, and then we're going to see how you can do it in terms of a multiple choice test, which is what we are tested on for most of our high school. So.
And this is what I wrote down too, the gradual release part, right? And I think another thing that I got from listening to you is that the multiple choice is not the focus, right? The focus is like you have to do open-ended questions so that you understand the procedure, the process, like the formulas, all of that. And then you'll transfer that to multiple choice. Because I think a lot of the times it's the other way around, right? Like, hey, you get to activate and then it's multiple choice. Like there's not really a time or a place for students to do that open-ended response. And so I love that. That is like, duh, it makes sense. Do open-ended. And then regardless, they're going to be able to transfer that into multiple choice. Because like, I believe with multiple choice questions, it's testing strategies that you need to learn, not necessarily the concept or the skills, right? So thank you for that, because my mind is just blown.
And then just to add on to that, it's being at an alternative school. We have kids that have not been taught testing strategies. So there's some groups of students that they have been drilled on testing since they've started in kindergarten, and there's other kids where they have not. They have different needs. They don't have the same test taking skills as other people, and so it's every day we are answering 3 questions. We are practicing how to eliminate answers. We're practicing how to read for important information, and so I don't have days to teach you how to take a test, but I can do a little bit every single day, and so again, why I love Desmos is you can pick the things that are really important to you and put them in a lesson.
Yeah, and that's great for like the must you should do aspire to do's too, right? At MCP of the lesson classification, like really again being intentional with that. And also just a reminder too for listeners that like testing skills are different than your skills, right? Like than the skills that you're teaching. It is different. So that is a skill set that we may have to teach our students, or we must teach our students, especially if it's a subject matter that is getting tested, right? So before we get off, Rebecca, I'd love to talk about the different scaffolds that you do provide for your students in math, because again, Desmos has allowed and like really encouraged you to use these scaffolds, but maybe some folks who are using Desmos have no idea what those scaffolds could look like. So can you just kind of list the different scaffolds that you provide students, and then like the taking away those scaffolds as they start doing their formative assessments?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can scaffold. Some of it is with language. So I have a lot of students that are multilingual. And so all of my practices, I have the ability to translate from Spanish to English. And yes, they can in their browser have their whole page translated, but I think it is a lot more intentional to be like, hey, I know we have people that prefer reading in Spanish, prefer reading in English, or read in English and want to learn Spanish. So there's that element of it. Being able to translate on the scale is one of the scaffolds that I provide in the beginning of the lesson, but not towards the end. And then I might, like if I was doing a lesson on volume, I might prompt them on, tell me the name of this figure through a multiple choice scaffolding. So I might have them name the figure. I might have them tell me the volume formula that they're going to use. And then as a third step, I might tell them to solve it. And then all of that scaffolding goes away by the end of the practice, because I'm hoping that you did learn from the multiple choice from having to enter the formula. And now the question is what you would see on a test. So find the volume of this cone when you're given the diameter and height. So I don't ask you, or I don't tell you it's a cone. I don't tell you what the diameter is. I don't tell you what the height is. You have to be able to look at the picture and find all of that on your own by the end of the practice. So you can give as much or little support as you would like through all the different features of Desmos. You can do it in multiple choice format. You can do it in an open response format. It's lots of different scaffolding. You can even add in small little videos pointing to, you can do anything. There's so many possibilities, but I think, again, just being intentional about the lesson, realizing that you have learners that are coming in from so many different backgrounds. And especially at my school, I have some kids that they've missed a month of school, and they've missed a month of school for probably every year of their life. And so they have different needs, and scaffolding is a really good way to make sure that everyone gets on the same page by the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think those scaffolding is really good, even for students who are more advanced, right? Like, yes, they've missed a month of school, and they're also on grade level or above grade level, right? There's like other issues happening there, but it doesn't stop them from continuing to deepen that knowledge that they already have.
Yes, and I would also like to add that this is scaffolding that you would do in a whole group. So it's if you were in a whole group teaching this lesson, you would first ask students what figure they see. This is a cone. And then you would ask them, what volume formula are you going to use to solve for this cone? Like it's stuff you would have said if you were teaching at the front of the board, but now it's here's this format that's giving them the immediate feedback so they build the confidence. And then by the end of the lesson, they're not going to need the support anymore.
Yeah, thank you so much for clarifying that. I think it's also important for folks to digest that self-pacing is also a whole group, right? Like there's whole groups that's happening. There's independent, there's the small groups, there's the collaborative piece of it all. So like mix it all up, like do whatever that you're doing really well in the classroom and then like enhance it with all the other strategies that you learn from this model. And so thank you again, Rebecca. This was so fun. I loved picking your brain when I was in your classroom because I just had so many questions, dire questions. I was like, tell me more about this, tell me more about that. But I just really appreciate you also being open and receptive and just saying yes to being on the podcast so that I can share your story because I was so enamored by it. And I was like, our listeners definitely need and probably want to hear about this too. So thank you so much for this.
Yeah, it's no problem. I enjoyed being here.